On the broadcast tonight, President Park Geun-hye and Uzbek President Islam Karimov agreed to push for new joint projects in gas development and solar power. As President Park's new Prime Minister nominee finds himself under mounting pressure to voluntarily withdraw, all eyes are on whether the presidential office will submit a proposal for his parliamentary confirmation hearing. And trial for the captain and crew of the sunken Sewol-ho ferry continues today. One crew member admits to charges of abandoning passengers and the ship. And as for World Cup openers go, this was about as bad as it gets for Portugal. Germany dismantled Portugal while U.S. snubbed Ghana. And for Team Korea's first match against Russia tomorrow morning, roughly 100,000 Koreans are set to gather across the nation to cheer for the team. Early edition begins now.
I see trees of green, red
늘 남편 먼저,
I see them
늘 자식 먼저.
for me and
레이디 퍼스트라는 말을 믿고 살아온 당신. 오늘만큼은 세상 누구보다 당신이 먼저입니다. 한 분 한 분 특별하게 모시겠습니다.
Excellence in Flight, Korean Air.
It is 5 a.m. in New York, 6 a.m. in Cuyaba, and 6 p.m. on Tuesday, the 17th of June here in Seoul. Hello, this is Early Edition of 6, live from Seoul. I'm Moon Gon-young.
And I'm Daniel Chen. Thank you for joining us. We don't begin on a high note today, however. It is about Mr. Moon Chang-guk, who has been the center of controversy for making some questionable comments about history and Korea. And he is, of course, facing a lot of opposition in terms of securing his position as the prime minister in Korea.
Right, and all eyes were on whether the presidential office will go ahead with its plan to submit a proposal for his parliamentary confirmation hearing today. And as our Kim Young-gil reports, we're just getting reports from the presidential office that submitting the proposal today might be a bit difficult. So here's our Kim Young-gil.
Prime Minister nominee Moon Chang-guk's apology for controversial remarks he made years back about Japan's colonization of the Korean peninsula doesn't go far enough for the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy, or NPAD.
Japan's colonization remains the biggest scar for the Korean people. We cannot nominate a prime minister who has a distorted view of history. If the government proceeds with the confirmation hearings, it will be criticized for lacking common sense.
Should the presidential office push ahead with Moon's nomination, some NPAD lawmakers say they would consider boycotting the confirmation hearing in protest. And the negative views of the prime minister nominee aren't reserved for the opposition party. 6 first-term lawmakers of the ruling Saenuri Party have issued statements calling for Moon to withdraw his nomination, while a number of more experienced lawmakers have openly criticized him. But the ruling party's floor leader, Lee Won-gu, plans to go ahead with the confirmation process.
There seem to be suspicions and doubts about the Prime Minister nominee, but the National Assembly has a duty to proceed with the confirmation hearing and evaluate whether the candidate is suitable.
The National Assembly will ultimately hold a plenary vote on Moon's nomination, which would require the attendance of at least 143 lawmakers. To be confirmed, Moon would need at least half of those in attendance to vote yes. Once the National Assembly receives a formal request calling for a confirmation hearing, lawmakers are required to hold one within 20 days. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
Well, over in the Uzbek capital of Tashkent, President Park Geun-hye met for summit talks with her Uzbek counterpart, President Islam Karimov, on this Tuesday. Now, in their joint statement, the two leaders agreed to bolster their political, economic, and cultural relations.
On the economic front, a number of MOUs were signed, and we have our Choi Yu-sun sending us this report from Tashkent.
President Bak's state visit to Uzbekistan this week comes as Korea looks to expand business projects with its #1 Central Asian trading partner. In 2013, Korea and Uzbekistan traded goods totaling some $2 billion. With a Korean stake of more than $8 billion in Uzbek gas field development and chemical complex construction projects, President Bak and their Uzbek counterpart Islam Karimov agreed to expand cooperation in the areas of energy, textiles, and transportation. Seoul asked for Tashkent's support for Korean businesses taking part in a $4 billion Uzbek gas development and processing plant and in the construction of a $300 million solar plant in Samarkand. Uzbekistan's solar power industry holds great potential thanks to the country's great exposure to sunlight. The two leaders also talked about Korea helping to develop an Uzbek electronic government administrative system and signing a deal to build a textile complex in the country, which is the world's #6 cotton producer. President Bak also asked that Korean firms be granted permission to take part in an Uzbek highway construction as part of a 5-year transportation infrastructure development project. The Uzbek leader also endorsed President Bak's Eurasia initiative, which aims to reconnect the Far East and Europe through Central Asia by linking energy and logistics infrastructure across the continent. The next stop on President Bak's Eurasia Initiative campaign tour is Samarkand, a city that was at the heart of the Silk Road. She'll then travel to Kazakhstan Wednesday for a 3-day state visit. Choi Yu-sun, Arirang News, Tashkent.
The 15 crew members of the sunken Sewol-ho ferry were back in court on Tuesday to answer to the charges against them and claimed that it wasn't up to them to save passengers in the sinking ship, but rather the Coast Guard.
The defense attorneys for the accused, who face charges ranging from homicide to negligence, said that once the Coast Guard arrived on the scene, the crew's job was done. The captain of the vessel, Lee Jun-suk, and 3 of his senior crew face charges of homicide by willful negligence and are looking at a possible sentence of the death penalty. Tuesday's court session was the second since the trial opened last week.
Meanwhile, search operations on the sunken ferry continue off Korea's southwestern coast of Jindo, with 12 people still unaccounted for and 292 people confirmed dead. So Captain Lee Jun-suk and 3 crew members are accused of what's called homicide through willful negligence. It's a charge that falls between the first-degree murder and manslaughter, but still carries the possibility of the death penalty.
Well, 11 other members of the crew are being tried on lesser charges of criminal negligence and violation of maritime law. So how can we expect the legal proceedings to play out?
Klaus Luta is a master deep ocean ship captain and maritime attorney. He joins us live via Skype from Washington, D.C. Captain Luta, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So the captain and 3 crew members are accused of homicide through willful negligence. Now, what does the prosecution here in Korea need to do to successfully prove their case?
Well, there are a couple things that the court needs to establish. The prosecution in particular has to establish what the crew members were thinking at the time the incident occurred, and they'll hold whatever evidence they find to a reasonable person standard. That means what would a reasonable person do in that similar incident. Now, I think we can all agree that if a ship is sinking, it's going to be in our best interest to get off of the ship as quickly as possible. However, in this incident, the captain and the crew are held to a higher standard. The #1 obligation of the captain and the officers is to ensure the safety of the crew, in this case, the safety of the passengers, the cargo, and the ship. So the prosecution, they're going to have to show that there was some sort of intent to get off the ship and abandon the passengers who are on board.
Well, clearly the man doesn't deserve the title. Is there a judicial precedent for such a case in other parts of the world, Captain? One that comes to my mind is the sinking of the Costa Concordia off of Italy's coast.
Yes, well, the captain of the Concordia is being prosecuted as we speak, and there's an overarching trend across the globe to criminalize ships' crews and officers, particularly captains. Anytime an incident occurs, it's automatically called for to send the captain to jail, which is not always justified. I think in the case of the Sewol ferry, it's pretty safe to say that there were some shortcomings in the captain's performance, and we can see already that the public of court opinion has indicted this man. But there is a precedent of criminalization of captains around the world. It's not uncommon, and as the Costa Concordia trial continues, we'll see more evidence of that. But again, the captain is held to a very high standard, and unfortunately, sometimes that results in criminal penalties. I think it's worth considering that we look at the actions of the company as well. As of right now, as I understand, the owner of the Sewol Ferry company cannot be found. He's around the globe somewhere hiding from prosecution, and we need to examine that part of this incident as well.
Definitely so. Now, how do we expect the Sewol ferry legal proceedings to unfold from here on? I mean, I can tell you that not only those directly affected by the ferry tragedy, but really the entire nation is closely watching this trial. But we should not be expecting the case to close anytime soon, should we?
No, and in fact, I'm quite surprised that the trial has come to bear so quickly. It's already in the court of public opinion, this man and his crew are guilty as far as everyone is concerned. So it's going to be a very tough challenge for the defense to come up with some sort of argument that will overcome the overbearing sentiment of not only the victims' families, but everyone throughout the country as well. I understand this hit the country very hard, and it's heart-wrenching as a ship's master and a mariner to see this sort of thing occur. There's no telling what the outcome will be, but it's likely that it will not be good for the captain and his officers.
Well, Klaus Uta, Master of Deep Ocean Ship Captain, Maritime Attorney, and Chief of Staff of the International Organization of Masters, Mates, and Pilots, thank you so much for speaking with us today.
Thank you.
Well, the 2014 World Cup is now at full speed, and for all of you craving another serving of football action, fear not, because there's no lack of excitement in Brazil.
Our sports correspondent Song Ji-sun has a wrap-up for Day 5 and gives us a look at what we can look forward to stay on top of the game. Ji-sun?
Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are enjoying the World Cup Brazil 2014. Now, starting off with the latest game that ended on this Tuesday morning. The U.S. team scored easily the fastest goal so far at this year's World Cup in what turned out to be a thrilling and explosive match. It took Captain Clint Dempsey just 30 seconds to put the ball in the back of Ghana's net. Ghana leveled it up in the second half, but John Brooks headed up the winner in the 86th minute. But it was a completely different story in the match between Iran and Nigeria in Curitiba. They became the first team to draw in this year's World Cup, playing out a rather dull 0-0. Now moving on to another record, the first hat trick in Brazil. The honor goes to Germany's Thomas Müller. Müller was also cutting up controversy after he got head-butted by Pepe. The Portuguese player, thinking Müller was play acting, reacted angrily when the referee sent him packing with a red card. A man short before halftime, and injuries on the Portuguese side, their star man Ronaldo couldn't work his usual magic on the pitch. Now let's turn our attention to Group H now, Korea's group. The first matches in Group H kick off this Tuesday for early Wednesday morning, Korea time. The lineup against Russia will pretty much be the same as the previous international friendly matches, led by forward Park Ju-young. Now the Korean squad is busy training for what will hopefully be a victory against the Russians. Let's now hear from the players themselves.
We focused on our game strategies and fine-tuning set pieces. The training was smooth in our base camp as well as here in Koyeba.
We've thoroughly monitored our opponent on video, so we are aware of their strengths and weaknesses. We are 100% ready for this match.
Now, once again, Korea's first group match against Russia is at 6 p.m. in Guyaba local time. That's at 7 a.m. on a Wednesday morning here in Korea. Before that, Belgium and Algeria will have already finished their match, so we'll have a better idea about what Korea needs to do to put themselves in the driving seat to advance next round. Now, those of you planning to join the Red Devils cheer on the Korean squad, here are the go-to places, the spots you should head to watch the game with thousands of others in front of huge screens. The cheers will be rather subdued this year following the ferry disaster in April. A rather reserved mass cheer will be held at Gwanghwamun Square instead of the City Hall, and another spot is prepared at Yeongdong-dae Boulevard, that's in front of the business district of Samsung Station. Now, Korea's superstar Psy is set to perform his latest hit, Hangover, and his other songs for the fans right there. We will bring you the live scenes of the cheering fans, and it's some sight to see, so stay tuned to Arirang for all the excitement throughout the day.
Well, thanks, Jason, for that. You know, I remember covering the 2010 World Cup, and I was actually on the ground reporting, and that's one experience that you'll never find elsewhere across the globe. Now, as for the 2014 World Cup, it's an exciting time for football fans all around the world, and those in Korea are also staying up late or waking up early to watch the big matches.
A lot of bloodshot eyes are expected. The time difference between Korea and Brazil is 12 hours. That means the games aren't on the most sociable hours. But that's not stopping Seoul's expat community from getting behind their national side. Our Connie Lee has this story.
Cheers and applause burst out from soccer fans who aren't shy about showing their passion.
I painted my nails in German colors and kind of dressed red, black and white.
Show your earrings.
Oh yeah, and here.
A World Cup winning team. World Cup winning team is Brazil.
The 2014 World Cup is in full swing, and here in Korea, you not only see Team Korea fans making a statement, you see fans from all over the world packing the pubs and restaurants to watch the games.
Even though most of the World Cup matches are in the wee hours here in Korea, it's the love of the game that is bringing together the different people who are all rooting for their home country.
The atmosphere is here, good atmosphere, and the people who really enjoy the soccer and usually enjoy the hangout gather here, so it's fun.
A handful of venues are open into the early morning hours in downtown Seoul to accommodate those who want to watch the matches live and on the big screen.
Korea, the times aren't great for the World Cup games, but we had a lot of interest in the World Cup. A lot of people were emailing us and sending us messages on the Facebook page.
And it seems like if you're a true fan of soccer, it doesn't matter where you are or what time the games are on, you watch and support, even if that means going into work the next day a little tired.
Yes, it's a bad time for going to work tomorrow, but if you really want to support your team, your national team, then it doesn't matter how late it is, you just need to support them.
Connie Lee, Arirang News.
Digging deeper, getting to the bottom of stories that impact your life, talking with you on air and online, connecting you with experts on the world's most pressing issues. News and current affairs at its best with Moon Gon-young and Daniel Che on Early Edition at 6.
Well, in a sign of the quickly deteriorating situation in Iraq, the U.S. government is reportedly considering working, in some extent anyways, with its traditional enemy, Iran. Keeping all options on the table, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry says anything constructive to providing Iraq with stability will be considered, and that includes airstrikes. Kim Hyun-bin reports.
The United States could cooperate with its traditional foe, Iran, to stop Sunni militants, known as the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, from continuing their rampage through Iraq. In an interview with Yahoo News on Monday, Secretary of State John Kerry said that while Washington is not in active discussions with Tehran, it will not rule out anything constructive in providing stability to the region. Another U.S. official said the two sides could discuss the situation in Iraq on the sidelines of nuclear talks scheduled for Wednesday in Vienna. If it were to happen, cooperation between Washington and Tehran to contain the Iraqi crisis will mark the first time in more than a decade for the two countries to jointly undertake a common security purpose. Iran is a strong backer of the Shia government in Iraq, and has signaled a readiness to cooperate with the U.S. to contain the crisis. Pentagon, however, made it clear that it will not engage with Iran on military activities in Iraq. As the situation spirals out of control, Kerry added that airstrikes are an option available to Washington, but no detailed plans on how to coordinate them have been drawn up yet. Meanwhile, President Obama on Monday has notified Congress that 275 U.S. troops will be deployed to Iraq to provide support and security for U.S. personnel and the American embassy in Baghdad. The troops are combat ready and will remain in Iraq until the security situation is brought under control. About 160 troops are already in the country, including 50 Marines and more than 100 Army soldiers. Radical militants from the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant have seized large parts of northern Iraq over the last several days, threatening to dismember Iraq and unleash all-out sectarian warfare. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Shifting our focus back to sports, fresh off North Korea's recent announcement that it would be sending athletes to the upcoming Asian Games in the South Korean port city of Incheon, speculations has emerged that the South and North Korean teams could join forces and play as a single unit. Seoul's Unification Ministry said Tuesday it was reviewing the possibility upon the request of Incheon City and the Asian Games Organizing Committee. It was just 2 months ago when the ministry dismissed the thought of having a single team along with the use of one uniform flag, calling it inappropriate considering current tensions on the peninsula. North Korea plans to send 150 athletes to compete in 14 different sports at the Games, which opens in Incheon on September 19th.
Well, it wasn't all that long ago that we were actually talking about the booming Korean film industry. But, after a record 2013, domestic movies have limped out of the gate in the first half of the year as Hollywood movies have stolen the spotlight.
Well, we did have a lot of Korean movies that didn't seem to stick with the formula and the performers that worked. We were kind of experimenting earlier this year. We'll see what happens in the later half. We have our Kwon So-wa to explain what to expect.
Korean movies have been less popular than Hollywood movies in the domestic market so far this year, turning over a trend that's developed in recent years. No Tears for the Dead and Man on High Heels are Korean movies that were released earlier this month and star well-established actors like Jang Dong-gun and Cha Seung-won. Despite being produced by entertainment giants CJ Entertainment and Lotte Entertainment, they have failed to receive much attention. According to the Korean Film Council on Tuesday, No Tears for the Dead and Man on High Heels have so far attracted 570,000 and 310,000 viewers respectively, which pales in comparison to the Hollywood action movie Edge of Tomorrow, which has drawn 3 million. In 2012, ticket sales for domestic movies surpassed the 100 million mark for the first time. And for 2 consecutive years, Korean films were more popular than those from Hollywood. In the first half of 2014, Hollywood movies got the better of Korean films by 5.6 percentage points. Experts say Korean movies are suffering from the lack of a major hit. Miss Granny, released in January, is the only one that qualifies so far after drawing more than 4 million viewers. There were 4 of these super hits all of last year. Film critic Chung Ji-wook thinks the reason may be a lack of creativity. Whereas films last year tapped into creative concepts, he says domestic films so far this year have depended more on their star power. With the year nearly half over, there are concerns that the domestic film market may not surpass the 100 million mark. Kwon So-wa, Arirang News.
Well, let's now turn to our Michelle Park at the Weather Center. Michelle, all eyes are on Brazil and the World Cup, and somebody is looking all ready to go out and do the cheers for the Team Korea.
And right now it's looking very hot and humid in Brazil with some sporadic showers, which are obviously not ideal conditions for the players.
Okay, that's for right now. Korea's first match against Russia is just a little over 12 hours away. Michelle, what type of conditions will Team Korea be playing under?
Well, kickoff is scheduled for 7 p.m. Brazil time, which is right around the time the sun will be going down. Unfortunately, there is no rain in the forecast, just a cloudy day. And for those of you here in Korea who might be looking for a place to catch the game, you can go to one of the many locations around the country showing it like COEX or Gwanghwamun Gate. And I think I speak for everyone when I say go Korea. And as for the weather conditions here, we can expect a hot day tomorrow, although we're expecting a cloudy day as well. Rain isn't in the forecast until Friday, where the southern regions are going to be influenced by the monsoonal front. Now going over to our tomorrow's readings, Seoul will top out at 21 and 29 in the afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern cities such as Daegu and Busan will peak up to 31 and 27 degrees. And moving over to other regions, Jeju Island tops out at 24, Dokdo at 21, while Mankungang tops out at 19. Well, that's all for now. I'm Michelle Park, and back to you guys.
Thanks for that, Michelle. And that brings us to the end of our newscast. Thank you for watching. For our viewers in Korea, have a wonderful rest of the evening. This has been Daniel Choi.
And I'm Moon Gan-young. To those of you in other parts of the world, have a great start to your day. And we hope to have news of a win for Team Korea same time tomorrow. Bye-bye and go Team Korea.